from it is Sanders. He's looking long. He's got a man caught at the 10-yard line. Bonds.
But, I think play more efficiently, not putting the ball in harm's way as much, would be important.
Here is the scoop on why Peyton Manning suggests some locker rooms are uncomfortable with Shedeur Sanders. Just who is this guy? Shedeur Sanders suits up as a professional quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in the NFL. Once a 4-star recruit and easily the most hyped quarterback prospect of his generation, Sanders carved out his legacy at Jackson State and Colorado before entering the 2025 NFL Draft. His college trophy case is stacked with the Jerry Rice Award, the Deacon Jones Trophy, and the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. He is the son of Pro Football Hall of Fame legend Deion Sanders and the younger brother of safety Shilo Sanders. Born on February 7, 2002, in Tyler, Texas, Sanders was raised in a football dynasty molded by his father's iconic career. He balled out at Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas, where Deion called the plays as his offensive coordinator. During his senior campaign, Shedeur completed 251 of 366 passes for 3,072 yards and 43 touchdowns, cementing his status as a top-tier Texas gunslinger. Recruiting services immediately slapped a 4-star rating on his talent. Although he initially pledged to Florida Atlantic, he flipped the script and committed to Jackson State the moment his father took the head coaching gig. Sanders arrived at Jackson State in January 2021. Since the program's spring season was delayed by COVID-19, he had to wait to compete. But by fall 2021, he was the undisputed starter. He torched defenses for 3,231 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 8 picks, snagging SWAC Freshman of the Year honors and the Jerry Rice Award for the best freshman in the FCS. That win made history. He became the first athlete from a historically black college or university to ever take home that hardware. At the same time, Sanders was cashing in on the NIL boom, inking massive endorsement deals with heavy hitters like Gatorade, Beats by Dre, and Nike, becoming the very first college football player to sign with the swoosh under the new regulations. By his sophomore year, Sanders had taken his efficiency to another level. He connected on 70.6% of his throws for 3,732 yards, 40 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. He was named the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year and brought home the Deacon Jones Trophy as the nation's premier HBCU player. Following the 2022 Celebration Bowl, he officially entered the NCAA transfer portal. When Deion Sanders took the reins at Colorado, Shedeur packed his bags for the Buffaloes and was immediately installed as QB1. His Colorado debut was absolute fireworks. He completed 38 of 47 passes for a school record 510 yards and 4 scores to upset TCU. He backed that up by dropping 393 passing yards on Nebraska the very next week. Sanders quickly became the heartbeat of the Colorado offense, rewriting the single-season passing record books in 2023, despite battling injuries, including a fractured back that sidelined him for the season finale. He wrapped up the year with 3,230 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, and a measly 3 interceptions across 11 games. In 2024, Sanders steered Colorado to a 9-4 record and a ticket to the Alamo Bowl. He aired it out for 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns, while leading the entire NCAA with a surgical 74% completion rate. That dominance earned him Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year honors and the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, crowning him the nation's elite upperclassman quarterback. In April 2025, Colorado announced that Sanders' jersey number would be retired for good. Yet, despite heading into the 2025 NFL Draft with massive publicity, Sanders took a slide that nobody saw coming. On April 26, 2025, he was finally grabbed in the 5th round, 144th overall, by the Cleveland Browns. Anonymous league executives were throwing shade at his draft profile. One veteran assistant coach publicly ripped his pocket presence, decision-making, and body language. The narrative shifted from his arm talent to concerns about his leadership demeanor and ability to process the game at pro speed. Still, Sanders handled the draft day disappointment with total composure, celebrating with his family and signing a 4-year deal worth $4.6 million, complete with a signing bonus of $447,280. But the draft process wasn't just stressful. Sanders got tangled up in a bizarre off-field controversy too. A prankster got hold of the private league phone line intended for draft calls and contacted him mid-livestream, falsely claiming to represent the New Orleans Saints. The caller was later identified as the son of Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. After the league investigated, they slapped the Falcons with a $250,000 fine and fined Ulbrich $100,000 for the breach. Meanwhile, Sanders started his rookie year holding a clipboard. For the first 9 weeks of the season, he didn't see the field. Then came Week 11. He finally made his debut against the Baltimore Ravens after fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel went down with a concussion. It was a rough start. Sanders went 4 for 16 for 47 yards and threw a pick in a heartbreaking narrow loss. The very next week, he took the reins as a starter for the first time, putting up 209 yards, finding the end zone once, and tossing a pick in a 24-10 victory over the Vegas Raiders. Then came Week 14 against the Titans, where Sanders absolutely went off for his first 300-yard clinic, slinging the rock for 364 yards with 3 scores through the air, punching one in with his legs, and giving up just a single turnover. But here's the kicker. After orchestrating a clutch drive to pull Cleveland within a deuce, he was yanked off the field right before the potential game-tying play so head coach Kevin Stefanski could run a wildcat formation instead. The gamble completely backfired. The Browns took the loss, and their postseason dreams were officially dead in the water. Naturally, that controversial call set the sports world on fire, sparking a fierce debate about the coaching staff's strategy and whether they actually trusted their rookie signal caller. Despite the drama, Sanders got the nod to lead the offense for the rest of the campaign. He wrapped up the 2025 season with a 3-4 record over 7 starts, connecting on just 56.6% of his throws for 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. To make matters worse, he logged the worst passer rating in the entire league among quarterbacks who threw at least 200 passes, which really drove home the worries about his efficiency and consistency in the big leagues. Then, on January 26, 2026, things got weird. Sanders got the call to join the AFC Pro Bowl squad as an injury sub. Basically, a bunch of other quarterbacks either said no thanks or couldn't play, which cracked the door open for him. People immediately started tearing the selection apart, pointing at his lackluster numbers from the actual season as proof he didn't belong there. Critics started drawing parallels to past roster shams, questioning the broken balance between the fan popularity contest, who is actually available to suit up, and real on-field production. Still, Sanders goes down in the books as the first Cleveland quarterback to make the cut since Derek Anderson back in 2008. Away from the turf, Sanders has been chasing clout elsewhere, dropping a hip-hop track called Perfect Timing in May 2024 and strutting his stuff in high-fashion modeling gigs. But let's keep it real. It is an open secret across the league that Shedeur Sanders has rubbed a ton of guys the wrong way. So, let's dive into exactly why so many NFL players can't stand him. Heading into the 2025 draft cycle, the guy was hyped up to be one of the first quarterbacks snatched off the board. Instead, he ended up becoming the single most polarizing and bashed prospect of the entire class. The hate train really left the station at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine inside Lucas Oil Stadium. He skipped the physical drills but sat down for heavy interviews with the franchises. Almost immediately, the chatter flipped from his arm talent to his attitude. Insider Josina Anderson broke the news that a quarterback coach from a team picking in the top 7 walked away thinking Sanders was brash, cocky, and full of himself. Anderson, for her part, publicly went to bat for him, disagreeing with that tag, explaining that in her own one-on-ones and watching him handle the press, she never caught a whiff of that supposed arrogance. She also dropped a nugget that other folks inside that very same building thought the coach was way off base, mentioning that particular assistant never wanted to draft Sanders in the first place. Then, draft guru Todd McShay chimed in. reporting that two separate clubs felt like Sanders acted like he couldn't care less about their feedback during meetings. According to McShay, the scouts felt his vibe was totally unprofessional and lacked the seriousness the job demands. That kind of reputation alone was toxic enough to send his draft value into a nosedive. Rumors from The Athletic hinted he might not just slip past the top 6, but could plummet right out of the first round entirely. The heat got turned up even higher when NBC's Matthew Berry leaked that reps from 2 squads walked out of their sit-downs with bad vibes. Both sources called him checked out and rude, admitting their interest tanked after talking to him. Meanwhile, those same people met with Cam Ward and said the guy was absolute gold. Now, Berry did add a disclaimer that this intel came from just 2 specific sources. Maybe the kid was having a rough day, or maybe he was purposefully blowing off teams he had zero interest in playing for. Even so, the contrast was stark. Everyone was singing Ward's praises, while league insiders were struggling to find nice things to say about Sanders. The whole saga quickly morphed into a massive argument about where the line is between elite confidence and toxic arrogance. At the podium, Sanders didn't back down, telling franchises to look elsewhere if they weren't ready for a quarterback coming in to flip the culture upside down. Coming from the college game as a top earner, he walked into the pros with a full bank account and an ego to match. Some scouts saw a spoiled brat, while others saw a guy ready to take charge. On FS1's show, The Facility, former linebacker Emmanuel Acho threw out a different take, claiming Sanders' swagger just triggers insecurity in other people. Acho emphasized that Sanders was rich before he ever touched NFL turf and was raised to know his worth wasn't tied to a rookie deal. In Acho's eyes, when a guy like Sanders walks in knowing exactly who he is, the suits upstairs read that security as arrogance because it threatens the old-school power structure. Mark Schlereth, a trench veteran, backed that up, noting that you actually need a level of arrogance to survive playing quarterback at this level. He brought up how Bo Nix got dragged through the mud the year prior, only to shut everyone up by bawling out as a top-tier rookie. Schlereth also tried to steer the ship back to actual football, focusing on Sanders' skill set, praising his laser accuracy, his ability to read defenses like a book, and his lightning-fast processing speed tools he called legitimate weapons. Super Bowl winner Keyshawn Johnson dropped a bombshell, suggesting that many NFL head coaches are just plain scared of quarterbacks who break the mold. These sideline bosses struggle with signal callers who refuse to fit the cookie cutter, robotic image that the league has pushed for decades. As Johnson sees it, the kid flashes a $1 million smile, speaks his mind without a filter, and walks with a swagger that screams individuality. Meanwhile, the scouts and suits upstairs are desperate for guys who keep their heads down, stay quiet, and act like corporate drones. LeSean McCoy didn't hold back either, demanding to know why franchises run to the press with dirt instead of keeping their scouting notes behind closed doors. J. Houshmandzadeh slammed the anonymous critics as gutless, noting they conveniently ignored classy moves like Sanders hyping up Ohio State's Will Howard during the combine. Rather than praising his leadership, the narrative got twisted to focus on buzzwords like brash, cocky, and overconfident. Then you have to factor in the massive elephant in the room, his legendary father, Deion Sanders. We are talking about primetime himself, one of the loudest, proudest icons the game has ever produced. With 8 Pro Bowls, 6 All-Pro nods, 2 rings, and a gold jacket to prove it. In 1989, he famously warned the Giants he'd be gone before they picked, and sure enough, the Falcons snagged him 5th overall, cementing a brand built on pure, unadulterated confidence. Rumors swirled that front offices weren't just sweating the young quarterback's attitude and demeanor. They were also terrified of the potential headaches that come with employing the offspring of a high-profile, powerful college head honcho. Ray Fittipaldo from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette noted widespread anxiety across the league about the prospect of managing Deion's heavy influence down the road. Although no one went on record calling it a deal-breaker, the reluctance was written all over the draft board as names kept flying off. The Pittsburgh Steelers brought Sanders in for a top 30 visit and seemed intrigued. Yet they skipped over him time and time again when on the clock, Fittipaldo revealed that the Steel City didn't even value him as a top-5 round talent, leaving him to plummet until the Cleveland Browns finally stopped the slide in round 5. Now he lands in a Cleveland quarterback room that is absolutely bursting at the seams with Kenny Pickett, veteran Joe Flacco, and rookie Dillon Gabriel all vying for snaps. That is not even mentioning Deshaun Watson, who is trying to bounce back from a second Achilles tear while sitting on that fully guaranteed $230 million mountain of cash from 2022. While all that drama unfolded, Pittsburgh grabbed Will Howard in the 6th and made a massive splash by inking Aaron Rodgers to a deal. Since arriving in Cleveland, Sanders has already snagged 2 speeding tickets, creating unnecessary noise. Though his dad had cautioned him that the pre-draft process is full of traps, Prime warned that franchises often trash a player's reputation on purpose just to make them fall down the board so they can snag a bargain. Legends like Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson also stood up, arguing that the kid was getting heat solely for having the audacity to believe in himself. To really get the full picture, you have to pivot to Deion and understand his perspective on his son's roller coaster journey. Here is how Primetime views the monumental task of raising a star and managing the antics that come with it. Deion experienced one of the biggest highs of his life when news broke that Shedeur had snagged a Pro Bowl nod right out of the gate in his rookie year. The young gun got the call-up last month to fill in for Patriot slinger Drake Maye on the roster. He joins a loaded AFC squad featuring Joe Burrow and Joe Flacco, stepping in after heavy hitters Josh Allen and Justin Herbert bowed out. For the elder Sanders, this wasn't just a stat, it was history, telling Roxy Diaz on We Got Time Today that his boy achieved something he never pulled off. I didn't hit that mark until season 3, but he nailed it in year 1, so he has definitely got bragging rights on that front right now. Looking back at that shocking drop to the 5th round last April, Deion didn't frame this victory as revenge, but rather as proof of divine planning and hard work. It is not about rubbing it in their faces with an "I told you so." It is simply a testament to how good God is. People don't get my vibe, who is in my corner, or the spiritual engine driving me. But that is the reality. And we love it. Yet, before he could even pop a bottle to celebrate, Deion's paternal instincts kicked in, shifting him instantly into defense mode. He immediately started calculating the PR angle, worrying about how the media would spin the narrative before the news even settled. As a dad, you put up the shield and ask, is this actually a win? How are they going to distort this? What is the angle going to be? Because the average person forgets that the bulk of these votes come from the guys on the field and the coaches on the sidelines. The fans only account for a slice of the pie, like 40, 20. So crafting the acceptance speech and managing the optics requires a serious strategy. You have to switch into father mode. Even though the balloting is split 3 ways, Deion's reaction shows his hands-on style. That impulse to curate his son's public image underscores the rigid, protective framework that has surrounded Shedeur since he was in diapers. This calculated discipline is the cornerstone of the entire Sanders parenting playbook and life philosophy. Since day 1, he has raised his brood of 5 with a heavy dose of rules, faith, and clear expectations. Whether it is Shedeur, Shilo, Deion Jr., Shelomi, or Deandra, they all grew up on a steady diet of structure. Every single one of them has carved out their own lane, managing the spotlight and the critics with surprising grace and composure. Deion attributes that toughness to a foundation built on old-school biblical principles, emphasizing core values and unwavering moral standards. Chatting with Jess Hilarious on We Got Time Today, he broke down exactly how his method clashes with today's soft, gentle parenting trends. He skips the timeouts and bad language, choosing instead to stick strictly to the old-school spare the rod philosophy as his moral compass. Honestly, what is the threat? Go to your room with the 50-inch television on the wall, a vibrating luxury bed, and maid service. I am not saying that. No, that approach never flew under my roof either, he clarified. He adheres to Scripture exactly how the good book lays it out, citing Proverbs 13:24 regarding the rod of correction. The verse suggests that refusing to discipline is a form of hatred, while loving a child means correcting them early, prioritizing lessons and responsibility over simple fear. Now, let's pivot to Peyton Manning's bombshell regarding Shedeur Sanders. where the legend finally uncovers why current NFL pros harbor animosity toward the young star. Shedeur Sanders has lived under a microscope for the vast majority of his playing days, and that intense focus is most glaring when people constantly stack him up against gridiron titans like Peyton Manning. Commentators, the press, and fanatics alike habitually tie Sanders to Manning when breaking down quarterback evolution. Rookie burdens and grace under fire. Manning, famous for a brutal rookie campaign where he threw the most picks in the league, stands as the ultimate example of surviving the fire. Sanders, on the other hand, gets lauded for looking cool, calm, and collected from day one. However, that unwavering swagger and rock-solid consistency have painted a giant bullseye on his back, sparking jealousy among peers and pundits alike. The roots of this resentment are complex. Primarily, Sanders snagged the rare chance to study directly under Peyton Manning himself. He has logged hours in film rooms and on practice fields, mixing high-stakes drills with deep dives into mechanics, coverage recognition, and situational football. He has soaked up wisdom from arguably the most cerebral signal caller to ever lace up cleats, mastering not just the mechanics of the throw, but the mental chess match of an elite quarterback. While this tutelage fast-tracked his growth, it also cranked up the comparisons. Experts frequently note that Sanders displays flashes reminiscent of Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, and Tom Brady. He has the brains, the accuracy, and the belief. Yet his youth and celebrity status make him a lightning rod for debate. This scrutiny hit a fever pitch during an iconic segment of Peyton's Places, where Manning, Deion Sanders, and Shedeur hit the gridiron for a workout that was equal parts fun and telling. Flipping the script, Manning lined up at corner while Deion ran routes and Shedeur played quarterback. Viewers cracked up watching Manning try to keep pace with Deion, who repeatedly left the Hall of Famer in the dust for easy scores, all while Shedeur showcased laser focus and steady hands. At one highlight moment, Shedeur dropped a dime of a back shoulder fade to Deion for a score, drawing applause from both his dad and the sheriff himself. Manning eventually snagged a pick on a slant route, proving he still has instincts. But he readily admitted his body can no longer cash the checks, his football IQ rights compared to the Sanders duo. That afternoon, Manning did manage to burn Deion once on a deep ball, hooking up with Marvin Harrison for a long bomb, a rare beat that Deion later used to school Shedeur on reading defenses, anticipating timing, and trusting his gut. To this date, Sanders holds the title as the only player to throw a touchdown against Peyton Manning, a unique accolade that highlights both his raw ability and the level of respect he commands. Yet, looking past the practice tape and viral clips, Manning and the fanbase have identified the real friction point regarding Sanders. It is his supreme confidence and innate ability to deliver when the lights are brightest. Sanders' composure, into D's, and loud self-belief simply rub certain people the wrong way. Spectators have flagged a massive double standard in media narratives when stacking him against other blue-chip prospects like Arch Manning, Peyton's own nephew. Arch, despite having barely touched the field in college, rode a wave of Heisman-level praise before his first meaningful snap, whereas Sanders battled non-stop hate even after a historic 2024 campaign with 4,340 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 10 picks. A huge chunk of the fanbase called out the hypocrisy, noting Sanders had to grind for every ounce of respect through stats, while others coasted on a famous surname. Peyton Manning has subtly touched on why the NFL brotherhood, talking heads, and crowds sometimes turn on Sanders. The very attributes that make Sanders special, his swagger, his football mind, and his killer instinct, can easily be twisted into accusations of arrogance or being spoiled. Sanders does not just play the game, he owns the atmosphere and refuses to shrink back from the noise or the pressure. He is ready to shatter narratives, shine in the clutch, and as that Peyton's Places clip proved, pull off plays that very few peers can mimic. For athletes raised on shut-up-and-play hierarchies, seeing Sanders combine elite production with loud confidence and media mastery can trigger serious discomfort or straight-up envy. The public sees it too, highlighting the massive gap between the treatment of Sanders and Arch Manning. Social media threads are full of people calling out the bias, people tried to put an asterisk on Sanders' success because of his father, while simultaneously crowning Arch before he produced a single stat. The trend is undeniable. When you combine elite talent with unapologetic confidence, as Sanders does, you are bound to attract equal parts worship and resentment. In the high-stakes world of the NFL, where legacy is king and egos are fragile, that friction often explodes into the exact kind of hostility Manning and the experts warned us about. As Sanders gears up for his rookie crusade, rocking the Cleveland Browns colors, currently sitting at number 3 on the depth chart. The writing is on the wall. He is far more than just a famous heir to a football dynasty. We are talking about a competitor whose pure skill, sharp mind, and loud confidence demand respect, while simultaneously breeding resentment. When you stack Peyton Manning's insights against the ruthless media noise, it becomes obvious why the league feels so edgy about Sanders. The kid is dangerously talented, bulletproof in his self-belief, and refuses to shrink into the background. And in a game that worships wins but villainizes swagger, those traits can make even the grizzled vets feel threatened, which is the real reason why so many players, consciously or not, hold such a twisted grudge against Shedeur Sanders. Sound off with your take in the comments below. And before you dip, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to NFL Rivals so you never miss a beat.